the City Commission meeting for January 7th, 2020. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First item up is the order of business. Mr. Gah, are there any changes to the order of business?
Thank you, President Decker. Just one minor change under 3A, under administration. That should just read Amendment to Development Agreement for West Ridge Subdivision. That's all we'll be discussing tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gah. Any questions for Mr. Gah on the changes to the order of business? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion on the amended order of business.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the amended order of business, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The consent agenda, commissioners, are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss this evening with staff? Hearing no questions, I look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. We have nothing on the timetable this evening, so we'll move right into non-timetable. And Mr. Gah, we have the 3A item that you mentioned, the amendment to the development agreement with West Ridge Subdivision.
Yes, thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. A couple of months ago, maybe about 3 months ago, it came through Planning and Zoning. This is a replat of the West Ridge Second Edition, and we're calling it now the West Ridge Third Edition. And up here, just kind of as a point of reference, really what we're talking about is these areas here. This is what we're talking about here. This is West Ridge Drive and Menards, and then this remains commercial lots. Originally, when this was plotted out, it left a few more commercial lots on this side, and the residential was here and extended into here. So this would be 50th Avenue when we talk about that a little bit. So this has been amended to change it more into the residential. And so the development agreement you see in front of you is really to talk about, it kind of sets some parameters of the whole development there, but you'll see 3 phases. So specifically, when we're talking about this, it's some of the requirements of phase 1. And so under number 2, under infrastructure, in D, it references West Ridge Drive. And that's something a little bit in a recent abatement hearing we talked a little bit about. That street currently ends about right here. It will go to about right there, just past that street. And there will be an access point, residential from the West Ridge Drive. That was something that was negotiated with the developers. We've heard a lot of concern about the limited access to that development, and potentially during big snow events. It's pretty wide open out there, and they experience a lot of drifting, and I think last year some folks were snowed in. So having some additional access points were important to us as a city for those residents, both those that are already there and those that will be added. So that was a real addition, improvement, and thanks to the developer on that. So there will be that, and actually what it does is it makes those commercial lots at least a little more accessible in the onset. And as we talk about phase 2 and 3 and how the future of the commercial developments in 50th Avenue West, those, when we talk about those phases, there will probably be some additions, but for now, West Ridge will extend to there. So that was there. And then in F, it talks about that in phase 1 that's there in red, that's 26 dwelling units. The developer intends to start in on construction this spring. Some of the lots are accessible from existing streets, so they'll probably start there and then potentially put in some the infrastructure underground and get the streets started while construction starts, and then everything will be finished up and some certificate of occupancies probably fairly simultaneously, and I think by this time next year, there will be several housing units completed out there, so that will be good. Then the only other thing, this is a standard agreement, and number 11, that was a blank. That is 130%. That's in accordance with Chapter 34 that was amended not long ago. I just noticed that earlier today. But otherwise, this is a very routine agreement, and I believe will lead to some additional quality, affordable housing in town, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions for Mr. Gah on this development agreement? There are no questions. I'd look for a motion on the,
Move to approve.
we have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, comments for Mr. Gah or staff on the development agreement on the West Ridge subdivision? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick? Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The next item up is a Microsoft software contract, and this will be handled by our IT manager, Mr. Meyer.
Good evening, Commissioners. The agreement before you is basically a 3-year agreement. It covers all of our server licensing, our Exchange server licensing, our Office licensing, and all of the Windows licenses for our desktops. Basically, it's a contract that we either approve as a contract, or we'd have to buy those licenses individually, which is at least 150% the cost bought individually. And if we're not licensed and under compliance, and that's part of the core cows that are in there, it's actually up to a $250,000 fine without that agreement. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Meyer on this agreement?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve the Microsoft software contract.
Second.
With a second. Any further questions for Mr. Meyer on the Microsoft software contract? What is the total, Mr. Meyer?
So just over 100,000 over 3
Okay,
years.
I think I did see that. Just scanning quick. Any further questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Yep. I have the next 2 items as well.
Okay. Yes, you do. You have the advanced business methods proposed agreements with the library and city hall.
Yep. So the first one for the library is a printer replacement for a copier that's already there. The way that one's going to work is we're going to replace the copier as well as another printer that is there. That's it basically is a kiosk printer for public printing, merging them into one unit and basically bringing that maintenance fee onto those 2 printers. And that is a reduced fee than what we're currently paying. And this is basically a standard 5-year agreement. Do you want me to cover the City Hall one now, or you want to wait until after?
We'll approve these separately, so. Any other questions on this copier / scanner and printer for the Dickinson Area Public Library? If not, I'd look for a motion on this agreement for the library.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next agreement will be for City Hall.
Yep. This one is basically an agreement to replace, an existing machine, basically with an upgraded model, and as well as the renewed 5-year lease on that and the renewed maintenance agreement to cover the printing costs on that as well. And that one also is at a reduced monthly rate than what we're currently paying.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Meyer on this? Not, I'd look for a motion on this copier agreement.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item up is a museum internship agreement, and this will be handled by Museum Center Director Furman. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. This internship agreement is a little bit different. Most of our interns that we get come from more local schools. These are 3 interns from the University of Modena in Italy. They are interested in volunteering to work on our summer dig, and as such, through their university, they'll be able to also, besides get the experience, get some college credit as well. What the University of Modena requires is a formal agreement. We've had city attorney review that. One item of concern did come up, Article 8, talking about any resolution of, what's the word I'm looking for, disputes or such that might arise from anything that happens during the internship. There are 2 options. The one is to look to the court of Modena in Italy to settle any problems, or to go to an arbitration option. Obviously, I think the city attorney would recommend that we go with the arbitration option, and has recommended that rather than saying just a standard arbitration board as was in the draft, she is calling out that the arbitration would be referred to the American Arbitration Association. Those are the changes.
This agreement, once, if we approve it, then will be sent to them
Yes, sir.
for, to see if they agree to those terms, right?
Well, they have reviewed it. They have reviewed it back and forth with the city attorney, and they're satisfied with this.
Okay. Any other questions for either Mr. Furman or,
I suppose if there's a minor problem, you will have to send you to Italy, huh?
Beg pardon?
If there's a minor problem, we'll have to send you to Italy?
Well, my Italian's pretty rusty, but I could watch The Godfather, I suppose, a little bit to get ready.
I move we approve, Mr. President.
okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Our next item up is a report from our city assessor, Mr. Hirschfeld, on the county abatement hearing update. Mr. Hirschfeld.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I've handed out before the meeting here the spreadsheet that had all the properties that were before you for abatement last Thursday. Yesterday morning, we were before the County Board of Equalization to have those abatements heard. The very last blue column there is the action that the County Board of Equalization has taken. And then the white column there at the very end shows the net decrease from the 2017 true and full as compared to the action taken by the county. The yellow highlighted ones are the properties that you took action on Thursday, and then the rest of those would then be further properties that the county had taken action on. The total decrease then from the abatement action was $14,233,000, and the net tax on that is roughly $175,000, and I think our share is around 20% of that. So with that, I'll open it to any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hirschfeld?
Mr. Hirschfeld, I see that only Roar's properties received abatements. What was, the conversation between those and the other applicant?
Sure, I didn't see the final reasonings yet from the county, but the discussion, and this is my take on that, so my opinion only, so if somebody else says something, take that into account as well. But most of the properties that were changed were the vacant lots. More consideration was given to those being considered ag land, being they'd been hayed in the past. And so all of those were decreased to ag land value except for those that had equipment on them, and I think the one that had the big soil pile, those they denied those as well. The only other improved parcel to be affected was the West Ridge Apartments, and a lot of discussion on that. To me, there wasn't a lot of consistency, but the one thing I got out of that is they placed a lot of emphasis on the fact that at the 2019 State Board of Equalization in August, that property was decreased to around the $11 million mark, and so they thought that the 17 value maybe should have seen a larger decrease over time than it had, and so they went ahead and elected to decrease that to what the abatement application was asking for.
So, Mr. Hirschfeld, the other properties that Commissioner Trustum referred to, the apartments, Jefferson and Lincoln, they had received no reduction by the state
They did not receive any reduction.
from last year.
From last year, no.
They didn't protest last year, so they didn't.
Excuse me, they did file last year an abatement for 2016. Those had all made it through the court just prior to the 2017, so I think emphasis was placed on the fact that they'd filed last year, they were heard by a judge, no action was taken, so the action that the county had done for last year's abatement was accepted, and so they relied on that decision then for 2017 as well. And then the Roars properties came behind that, and they hadn't been before them yet. There hadn't been a judge's decision affirming any action, so they were a little freer in making some adjustments to those.
But they weren't at the state level last year either, received any kind of reduction. Like, the West Ridge Apartments received a reduction by the state last year.
Correct, and the others did
So
not.
these others did not.
They did not go to the state. They did not participate there.
Okay. Right, any other questions for Mr. Hirschfeld?
Mr. President, my only other question, we had considered requesting an opinion from the State Attorney General. Is that something that you wish to move forward with so that we have that information for future abatements, or is it not necessary at this point in time?
In my opinion, it would be beneficial. I mean, the discussion this board had was good discussion. The discussion that the county board had was different, which is different than what the state's decision was last year. So, you know, everybody has their own opinion on this. It's century code, and there should be one deciding opinion, which in my opinion would be the AG's opinion on that. So if we can move forward with that and are successful in getting some clarification on this, I think it would help not only our department, but the assessing offices throughout the state.
So, Ms. Wenko, would we just provide documentation on what our subject is, and then they would reference that and make that decision?
Commissioner Trustum, in fact, after the meeting last Thursday, Mr. Hirschfeld and I did have a conversation about obtaining information from the AG's office. I actually did receive a response from the person in their office that does handle a lot of the AG's requests. Indicated to me that because it was a tax issue that we should first reach out to the state tax commissioner, which I will do, and then also indicated that there are certain limitations on what they can provide an AG's opinion for. So I will provide them documentation to see if this is something that can fall under that realm of what they can give us and provide us for information. So I am currently working on that request.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hirschfeld or Attorney Wenko? All right, thank you, Mr. Hirschfeld.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have an item under public safety this evening. We have a report, and that'll be handled by Captain Ciani. Welcome.
Good evening. I never thought I'd be the one that slowed down a commission meeting. Holy cow. I'm here to present the SCRAM program. We're implementing that as of a couple of weeks ago. We sent out SCRAM applications in the utility billing envelopes for the community to sign up and register. SCRAM is an acronym for Surveillance Camera Registration and Mapping Program. We felt with all the video cameras that are out there for residential security cameras, commercial security cameras that are out there to show a view of the streets and the public view, that there's got to be an opportunity when a crime occurs in a specific area of town, that the likelihood of someone's camera or security system capturing some evidence on that is a high likelihood of it. And in the past, we've always had to sent officers door to door to try to see if anybody has cameras, and if they do, if there's anything that was captured. So we figured we'd come up with this plan to actually give the public a chance to register with us their security cameras. And how it would work is if you'd opt in, you would just fill out an application designating how many cameras you have with exterior views of your home, your location, and then we're going to be working with Daryl Hochhalter to put in a mapping program. So if we have a burglary at any area of town, we can actually pull up the mapping program after we get enough registrants to see actually who has a camera system. We can reach out to those people in that area and actually ask for permission to come in and view their archived footage that may show some evidence. So completely voluntary program. We had a lot of people thinking that it was a government intrusion. They thought that we could remote into their cameras and view live feeds and things like that, just looking at some of the comments on Facebook during the implementation period. That is not the case. All you're doing is registering that you have a camera system, and it does capture outside views, and you're willing to let us map it and know that it's there, so we can reach out to you and see if anything that was captured would be helpful to solving a crime. So, and those that do will get a cling similar to this, a little bit smaller. It just shows that you are registered with the police department, your camera system. So basically says if you can see this, we can see you. So any questions with that one?
I think it's an excellent idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're hoping it's successful. I have about 30 applications on my desk so far. It's going to be a little bit of a lengthy process. Daryl's busy to get all the working cogs and.
How else are you going to promote this here to get it out to the public that they can do this? I mean, this is one way. Putting anything in the paper or?
Yeah, we haven't did the paper. I've sent some media releases out. Whether they print that is up to them. We have used Facebook, and I said we use the utility billing information right now, and we'll probably hit it again here in 3 months. We're not in a big hurry to hit it hard yet until we have the mapping portion set up. Right now, we'd have to manually go through the applications and see what people have registered at this point. But so it's a little bit of a process, but it's going to come around.
Why don't you go out to the couple radio station and ask for a 5-minute interview?
We can do that, and certainly on our agenda. Sergeant Brandon Stockey is our community resource officer along with the school resource sergeant. So he's in charge of this program. He's been attached to this, assigned to this, and you may have heard him on the radio a few other times doing some other public service announcements, so that is on the agenda.
I know KFYR is always looking for stories out here, so maybe reaching out to them would be a good idea.
I think they did come out and talk to Brandon. I'm not sure. They have been reaching out for stories. So.
I know they're looking for stories out here all the time, so.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Captain Ciani?
I think it's a great program.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that is it for the evening. Well, I'll take that back. We have on the agenda, that's it. Item 10, public issues of city concern, not on the agenda. If you are a citizen of Dickinson with a concern that it was not on our agenda this evening, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concern. Anyone from the public have any concerns? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public has any concerns not on the agenda, I will close that aspect. Commissioners, this is your time period here. If there's something that wasn't on the agenda, you wish to ask staff or just bring up any kind of good news or anything, please bring it up at this time. I would just kind of give a commission an update. Mr. Gau's working on the RFP, and they're also working on a plan to bring forward. They are diligently working on the wage scale. So we'll have an update shortly with that. And we have a commissioner with a birthday. So
Yep.
like to
All right, everybody.
happy
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to Commissioner Walla. So don't, being it's your 21st birthday, don't go too crazy this evening. So we don't want you on the front page of the paper.
We'll pick you up on cameras.
SCRAM.
So. Anything else for the good of the cause, commissioners? Now I look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.